If there's one thing the UK knows how to do, it's surprising those who arrive full of expectations, or even a little afraid of the grey weather and heavy accent. In fact, right from the start, it's impossible not to be enchanted by how much history, culture, and modernity are mixed on every corner. It's the kind of place that makes you feel like you're in a movie, but at the same time, it welcomes you with the simplicity of a good pub on the corner. And believe me, there are thousands of them. First highlight: the ease of moving between past and present. In London, for example, you can cross a modern street full of glass skyscrapers and, on the next block, come across a 13th century church or a centuries-old bookstore. In fact, every city has this vibe. Edinburgh with its fairy tale castles, Liverpool pulsating with music in the bars, Manchester breathing football in every pub. There's no monotony for those who like to experience different atmospheres during the same trip. Another impressive point is the quantity and variety of museums, and many of them are free. The British Museum is practically a trip around the world in a few hours, with pieces from all eras and continents. The Tate Modern challenges even the most uninitiated to approach contemporary art in a fun way. The best part is knowing that, regardless of your profile, whether you love classical art or technology, there will always be an exhibition or interactive experience to discover. And a free museum is that invitation. Come on in, make yourself at home. You can even repeat the visit on different days to enjoy it at a leisurely pace. Now, talking about the UK and not mentioning the food would be a crime against the tourism of happiness. Here, the fame of the giant fish and chips is real, but it goes far beyond that. In urban markets like Borough Market in London, you can find flavors from all over the world. Indian curry, kebab, Portuguese custard tarts, Greek sweets, German sausages, not to mention the bakeries that have given a new meaning to the simple afternoon tea. Have you ever tried a cream tea? It's tea with a scone, butter, and jam. A delicious treat that makes any afternoon feel like a movie. Even typical British cuisine, which for years was unfairly judged, has been making a comeback with chefs innovating on dishes like the Sunday roast or the traditional full English breakfast. Imagine eggs, bacon, beans, mushrooms, and toast, a breakfast to be respected. And it's impossible to talk about the positive British vibe without mentioning the urban parks, which are practically an extension of people's homes all year round. Even with the crazy weather, the British take advantage of every ray of sun. They have picnics in Hyde Park, walk in Regent's Park, or play football on any neighborhood field. The connection with nature is taken seriously. In any city, big or small, there is always a super well-kept green area with squirrels scurrying everywhere. And yes, it's worth taking a little time just to sit, observe, and feel the calmer pace, even in the middle of the most bustling neighborhoods. Another strong point that usually surprises is the access to culture and entertainment. Theater shows in the West End, indie music concerts in Liverpool, street festivals in Brighton, traditional parties in Scotland. The cultural calendar is immense all year round. For those who love football, it's a whole other story, because visiting legendary stadiums like Old Trafford or Anfield goes beyond the game. It's about living the local passion for real. Not to mention that everywhere, there's a welcoming atmosphere. That British way of respecting individuality, whether for those traveling alone or in a group, for backpackers, or those seeking luxury. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to hear a funny story or an unexpected tidbit. Can you imagine having a craft beer in a pub that has been around for 400 years? That's just the beginning of British charm. If the UK is charming on one hand, it's also true that every tourist needs to face some unromantic challenges upon landing there. And look, it's not drama. It's those annoying situations that happen precisely because we get excited and forget about the less Instagrammable details of the trip. First negative point, no mincing words. The cost of things. The pound sterling is famous for being a powerful currency, and this hits hard when you start mentally converting every snack, ride, or souvenir. Arriving and thinking you can survive on the same budget as other European destinations can bring unpleasant surprises. A simple coffee with a scone in a popular place can be a burden on your wallet. And if it's in a touristy neighborhood, the shock is even greater. Restaurants, public transport, airport transfers, and even supermarkets. Everything has a higher value than we're used to in Brazil. A real shadow for anyone planning to spend many days or who likes to enjoy nice restaurants. It's not just the price that's shocking. The weather, which is such a protagonist in expectations, can also be a challenge. Rain may not bother the British on outdoor outings, but for those who come from tropical countries, realizing that summer doesn't always mean heat is a reality check. Spending the day with a gray sky, cold wind, or that incessant drizzle can be discouraging for those who prefer outdoor activities or want sunny photos. The weather forces you to plan well, and also to learn to improvise, because everyone who ventures outside for a long time has been caught in a surprise rain or gone back to the hotel freezing. Another not-so-fun and important thing to know about is the famous scams targeting tourists. Although the UK is safe, there are always those who try to take advantage of distractions. Fake taxi scams, for example. Unlicensed drivers offer attractive prices but can charge much more later or even take unnecessary detours. There are also those who try to sell fake tickets for shows or famous attractions, especially in lines for stadiums or theaters. In busy tourist areas, such as around Big Ben, Notting Hill, or Piccadilly Circus, wallet and cell phone theft happens, usually very subtly, so keeping your backpack or bag close to your body is never an exaggeration. And you can't escape the culture shock, which sometimes takes even those with sharp English by surprise. The British are very reserved, really, and show affection or relaxation in much less expansive ways. Being too effusive, talking loudly, or cutting in line is almost a social crime. No hugging strangers right away and pay extra attention not to break etiquette rules. It seems silly, but some people feel the coldness and find it strange to be politely ignored in elevator, cafe, or public transport conversations. There are also the quirks of public transport, which work well but require attention. The London Underground, for example, is efficient but can be confusing and crowded during peak hours, the famous tube squeeze, when literally everyone is squeezed into the cars. And if you're traveling in smaller cities, connections are not always frequent, especially on Sundays and holidays, something many tourists don't know and end up stuck waiting at stations that seem to be in the middle of nowhere. Adapting to driving on the left also causes certain funny and sometimes dangerous situations for those who rent a car. Changing lanes and facing roundabouts in the opposite direction requires calm, attention, and a little humility to ask for help when in doubt. Even crossing the street can become an adventure if you don't pay attention to the signs warning you to look the right way. It's time to discover those things about the UK that no one tells you about in official guides, but that make all the difference in the vibe of the trip. And the truth is, no one thinks they'll be so surprised by details until they are there seeing everything up close, finding even the way of ordering a tea or crossing the street curious. Because the UK deep down is this package full of quirks, traditions, and even craziness that have been working for centuries. First curiosity that many people only understand in person: the obsession with queues. Here, getting in a queue is almost a sacred ritual, whether to get a coffee to go or to wait for the bus. No one cuts in, no one complains, and anyone who tries to cut a corner gets a stare right away. There's even a word for this practice, called queuing, and the British are proud of their reputation as world champions in this regard. And there's more. Even to get into a super crowded pub, there's a polite way of signaling your turn, like discreetly raising your hand to the bartender. It's all choreographed without any planning. Another thing that is intriguing is the weather, but not just because of the cold or the rain. In the UK, the weather changes so fast that the classic "be prepared for 4 seasons in one day" makes perfect sense. It's not absurd to leave in the morning with sun, then face rain, a cold wind during your lunch break, and a beautiful sunset at the end of the afternoon. That's why that little umbrella is always present in bags, backpacks, and even coat pockets. It seems like an essential accessory. Not to mention that weather apps are used as much as WhatsApp because deciding what to wear is a mini challenge every day. The world of pubs also holds its curiosities. For example, many traditional pubs close early, especially outside major centers. You can arrive excited at 10 p.m. thinking the night is just beginning, but discover that the last orders have already been called and the bar will close in a matter of minutes. Different, right? And don't even try to run a tab. In the UK, the rule is to order and pay on the spot, directly at the counter, and then go and get your drink in peace. In many places, they even have pub quizzes, nights of questions and answers on all sorts of topics, from football to royalty, that become a typical outing for friends and families. Life on the London Underground, the famous Tube, is also a show in itself. Mind the gap. That phrase that is constantly repeated on the loudspeakers and is written on the floor of all platforms has even become a t-shirt print. But few people know that the space between the train and the platform was so tiny in the original design that the risk was only warned about years after the subway opened. Today, the phrase is almost a national symbol. Another detail, talking on your cell phone or listening to loud music on public transport is seen as super rude, as is not letting people pass on escalators. Always stay to the right. And speaking of daily oddities, have you ever heard of the regional British accent? In London alone, there are dozens. In Liverpool, scouse sounds like English mixed with another language. In Scotland, certain dialects even become an inside joke. And in Wales, the signs are bilingual. And, spoiler, the Welsh spelling seems invented to confuse tourists. And for those who like ghost stories, there's a very strong tradition of ghost tours. Old castles and pubs have legends of apparitions and inexplicable events, and spending the night hunting ghosts with a flashlight in hand is a cult activity in several cities. When the topic is behavior, the British stand out for those who make a point of showing, through the smallest gestures, how much they value respect, privacy, and silent kindness. It may sound strange at first, but understanding this British code makes all the difference to avoid gaffes and arrive already showing respect for the local culture, even if that means holding back the urge to hug or tell your whole life story at the first meeting. To start, punctuality is almost a religion. Arriving late for an appointment, whether it's a coffee with an exchange student colleague or a dinner at the home of a local host, is more than just frowned upon. It's a sign of disrespect for the other person's time. Therefore, always calculate your route considering possible delays. Public transport usually works, but it's good not to risk it. Do you have extra time? Stay nearby, waiting discreetly, and here's an essential tip. Don't show up empty-handed if you're invited to someone's house. A simple gift already shows care. Chocolate, wine, flowers, but avoid chrysanthemums because flowers have different symbolisms, and chrysanthemums can be associated with funerals there. You don't need to overdo it. The gesture is worth more than the value. When greeting, a firm handshake is usually enough, but no bone-crushing. A discreet smile and a "nice to meet you." If it's a close relative or longtime friend, a quick kiss on the cheek might even happen. But if the host pulls you in for a half-sided hug, just go with the flow. During conversations, observe the tone. The British value discretion. Talking too loudly in restaurants, on public transport, or in queues can be annoying. Controversial topics like religion, politics, or personal life are reserved for those you have an intimate relationship with. And that habit of apologizing becomes almost a national sport. Sorry comes out almost as a reflex, even when it's not their fault. If you think you've accidentally bumped into someone on the subway, apologize quickly and you'll already sound in the loop. Another thing that scores points with the British is politeness in using common spaces. If you need to pass someone, an "excuse me" will do. On public transport, always give up your seat to the elderly, mothers with children, or people with disabilities. No one will applaud, but they will notice. And don't forget, on escalators, keep to the right. Standing still on the left can cause "I'm watching you" looks. In the pub or restaurant, don't yell to call the waiter. The custom is to discreetly raise your hand or wait for eye contact. In pubs, individual tabs don't exist. Everyone pays for their round directly at the counter, and friends usually take turns paying for rounds. Splitting the bill is also common. No drama. In general, avoid frequent interruptions in conversations. The British respect silence and value listening before speaking. Avoid being the center of attention right away. Their sense of humor is peculiar. It's ironic, full of subtle and self-referential jokes, but rarely aggressive. And don't be surprised if they laugh at themselves. Self-deprecation is part of the local fun. A fun anecdote. Many British people use jokes, even in serious situations, to lighten the mood or relax. The dresses, winter clothes, raincoats, don't doubt the local practicality. Dressing for the weather, even if it means mixing styles, is more important than looking impeccable. No one cares about showing off, but they will notice if you're not prepared for the cold or rain, and they might even make a good-humored joke about it. Shall we talk about safety? Because no place in the world is 100% free of problems, including destinations that are famous for being too peaceful. The UK is among the safest countries in Europe for tourists, but it's worth remembering. Staying alert and taking certain precautions never goes out of style. The idea here is not to scare you, but to avoid unnecessary headaches that can ruin a good trip. First of all, British cities in general have visible policing, cameras everywhere, especially on the subway, in tourist centers, and in commercial areas. And the atmosphere on the streets is one of tranquility. You can walk around at night in almost all the central neighborhoods of London, Edinburgh, Liverpool, and so on, without having to look over your shoulder every 5 seconds. Just one detail, lively places at night like the areas around pubs and clubs attract both tourists and clever people looking for distractions. Don't be careless with your cell phone in plain sight or count money in front of everyone. The basics of prevention are worth their weight in gold. Public transport is safe and the best way to get around cities. But be careful during peak hours, especially on the London Underground, the famous tube. Being aware of your backpacks and bags is important, as the pushing and shoving increases, and that's when pickpockets appear. And these guys are so discreet that you only realize what's happened when you notice your phone or wallet is gone later on. The tip for crowded subways and crowds: always wear your backpack in front of your body, keep your purse cross-body, and never leave your zippers open. If you carry cash, distribute it in different compartments. Only use credit cards in trusted places, and never reveal your PIN in front of anyone, because there are reports of people who try to peek at the password at busy ATMs. Another classic point: taxi scams. Forget taxis without a license plate, pirates, offers at the airport, or insistent drivers at the exit of clubs. The right thing to do is to take the legendary black cabs, those iconic London taxis, or use reliable apps like Uber, Bolt, and Free Now. You can order through the app, track the route, and even record everything, avoiding route or fare shocks. A curiosity: London black cab drivers take a test called the Knowledge, a kind of street knowledge exam. Trust these guys so you don't fall into a trap. Always keep your documents on you, preferably in an internal fanny pack, one of those thin ones, or keep them well hidden in the hotel safe. If you lose your passport, don't panic. The Brazilian consulate in London works well for emergencies. But of course, you can avoid an absurd headache if you organize yourself to keep everything safe. In parks, at attractions, and at large events, pay attention to the signs. Do not step on the grass is for real. Bringing a ball or a dog to certain areas can result in a heavy fine, and the rules are taken seriously by the people themselves, not just the police. Street festivals and outdoor parties are unmissable experiences, but pay attention to your personal belongings because crowds attract opportunists. Avoid showing off expensive things like jewelry or watches when walking at night in empty or unknown areas. And no matter how peaceful the country is, it's always worth keeping location apps activated, especially if you plan to walk alone off the most touristy routes. 999, Police Emergency, works great, and the teams always respond very politely.